Hi, this is the second lesson of the course Literary Genres, and in this lesson we're going to learn about the literature of absurd. It's a very interesting topic and it is being explained by Prakhar Patidar. I'm a student of English literature, and let us start with this lesson. It's the second lesson in the course Literary Genres, and it is about literature of absurd. Literature of absurd is a term that is applied to the works of drama and prose that have in common the view that human condition is essentially absurd and can be adequately represented only in works of literature that themselves are absurd. The word absurd means nonsensical, illogical, and that is exactly what the literature of absurd is about. Let us take a look at the origins of literature of absurd. The mood and dramaturgy of literature of absurd can be anticipated as early as 1896 in Alfred Jarry's French play Ubu but the main roots of this literature is expressionism, surrealism, and fictional works of Franz Kafka. As a movement, it started in France, and this was after the Second World War, and it can be described to be something that was a rebellion against basic beliefs and values in traditional culture and literature. This is a genre which was created or which rose in modern era. Modern era is the first half of the 20th century. Effects of it were seen in the postmodern era. Let's look at the three main roots of literature of absurd in detail. First is Expressionism. Expressionism was a German movement, and it was the movement of art that acted as the representation of powerful and visionary states of mind. And how this representation was done? It was done by showing distorted pictures of the outer world or by writing the distorted description of the outer world. Second is Surrealism. Surrealism was a French movement, and it was a revolt against all the restraints on free creativity. The kind of art Surrealism promoted was the art that would shock and bewilder the observer and serve to destroy the false values of modern bourgeois society. And the third route is Kafka. Franz Kafka was a German novelist and a short story writer, and his works fused the elements of realism and the fantastic. His characters often faced unsolvable problems, and they were placed in isolated surroundings and often felt alienated. Major reason why literature of absurd rose, it was because there was a significant shift in the philosophy that revolved around the view of human beings. Shift happened after the World War II, so a lot of credit goes to the horrors of the World War. Before the World War II, the traditional view was that human beings are fairly rational creatures living in a universe that holds meaning, and they may be capable of heroic deeds even in defeat. But after the World War, the existentialist theory came into picture. This theory pulled down the human beings from the pedestal they had been put onto, and it discarded every belief that said that the universe holds meaning, the life holds a purpose. This theory said that human being is an isolated existent with no real purpose and who has been cast into an alien universe that holds no meaning. Existentialist theory promoted the belief that the world is there just for the sake of being there. There's nothing more to it, there's nothing less to it, there's no deeper meaning to it, there's no higher truth to it. Coming on to the characteristics of the works that fall under the category of literature of absurd, first and foremost is the main character represent a man who's lost. About the characters who are trying to make sense of the senseless and are trying to communicate to the incommunicable. It's about a character who does not know where his or her life is going, who does not know what he or she is supposed to do, and who's facing an unsolvable problem, and because he or she is stuck in such an unsolvable problem, he or she has no idea what is to be done to solve it. The course of life is moving and they are going along with it. Second is that the stories and the poems and the dramas of literature of absurd are usually set in a universe that holds no hidden meaning, that holds no higher truth, that discards the belief that there is something beyond us and bigger than us. It just promotes the fact that there is nothing. All there is the world we have right now, the life we have right now, and even that does not hold any meaning. The third characteristic is that the actions of man are senseless and absurd and useless. Like I said, men and women are in a universe, are in a situation they cannot get out of. They do not know what it is for. So all the actions are senseless and they're absurd. They're of no use. The fourth characteristic is the protagonist is often put in bizarre or surrealistic predicaments. That is, again, the situations of which the protagonist cannot get out of. Example, the novella of Franz Kafka, Metamorphosis, tells the story of a man who one day is suddenly converted into a beetle, and not a small beetle, a life-size beetle, a human-size beetle. And now he does not know what to do, and he does not know how to get back into the form of a human being. So he just has to get along with the situation that has been forced upon him. He just has to know how to live as a beetle. So this is an example of a situation which are a usual characteristic of the works of literature of absurd. When we're talking about the literature of absurd, it's necessary to talk about Samuel Beckett, the most eminent and the most influential writer in this mode. He is of Irish descent, but he lived in Paris and he wrote in French, and then he later translated those works from French to English. His plays are great examples of works that project irrationalism, absurdity, and helplessness and absurdity of life in dramatic forms that reject realistic settings or logical reasoning. A few examples are Waiting for Godot and Endgame. Waiting for Godot is a play which is about two tramps living in a waste place, and they're hopelessly waiting for an unidentified person named Godot, who may or may not come, who may be real, he may not be real. And here's a line from the play. One of the characters says, "Nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes, it's awful." Here in one sentence, we get the ambiguity of everything that existentialism speaks about. This play has been written as a parody of traditional assumptions of Western culture, and it is filled with lucid and pointless dialogues which creates a comical effect. It's grotesquely comic. Grotesque means incongruous and shockingly inappropriate. The plot of the play is irrational and insignificant. The actions of the characters do not really matter. Examples from prose fiction by Samuel Beckett are Malone and Unnameable. Both of these works tell the story of an anti-hero who plays out the absurd moves of the end game of civilization in a non-work which tends to undermine the coherence of its medium language itself. Now, whatever I just read means both of these works tell the story of an anti-hero. Anti-hero is the central character who lacks conventional heroic attributes. And this anti-hero is just going with the flow of the absurdity of the civilization. And these works have been written with such absurdity that they exemplify the fact that they have been written as a literature or as a work of absurd. Characters in these works, they carry on with a meaningless existence and without a purpose, trying to make sense of the senseless and communicate with the incommunicable. Again, it's a representation of the existentialist behavior, of the existentialist philosophy. And that is it. We have ended with the explanation of literature of absurd. What are we going to do next? We are going to cover the genre comedy. And I hope this helped. Thank you for taking this lesson. Please continue on with the course. We have 8 or 9 lessons left in which we talk about and in which we learn about different genres. Thank you.